What is up, beautiful people? Welcome back to another video. On this video, I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful monostrap dress with a flace sleeve, and we are going to be using this lace fabric for this tutorial. So I have this satin that will serve as the lining and this tulle that will be the sleeve for this dress. So let's go over to the work table. So first, I folded my fabric with my bust measurement because we are cutting the upper part first, and then I marked out the shoulder line. I'm going to mark the full length of the upper part to be 15 inches. I'm going to explain why I marked that later, okay? So after marking that, I'm going to go ahead and mark the shoulder line. My shoulder is 14 inches, divided by 2 is 7 inches, so I would mark that. On that point where I marked 7 inches, I'm going to mark 7.5 inches downwards for the armhole round of this dress. And after marking that, on that point, I'm going to mark 7 inches like this. And I'm going to connect the point to the shoulder line. So now I have my shoulder line, waistline, and bust line. On the bust line, I'm going to mark a quarter of my bust measurement. My bust measurement is 34 inches, divided by 4 is 8.5. So I'll mark that. And then I'm going to mark 1 inch for seam allowance. After that, I'm going to cover the armhole like so. So on the waistline, I'm going to mark my waist measurement divided by 4, which is 6.75. My waist measurement is 27 divided by 4, 6.75, okay? So I'll mark 1 inch for that, and then I'll add 1 inch extra for the seam allowance. So I'm going to connect the bust measurement down to the waistline like so, and after that, I'm going to go ahead and cut out this part. Alright, so I'm going to open this up and show you what I have for the front panel of the upper part. So I'm going to use this right here to cut out the back. So I folded it into 2, and then I added my 1 inch zipper allowance to the back panel, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it out as well. Alright, so this is what I have for the 2 pieces. So before we cut out the shoulder to make it off shoulder, I'm going to go ahead, and the way the back panel is like this is the back panel, is bigger than the front with 1 inch. So I'm going to fold it, and then that 1 inch that I added for zipper allowance, I'm going to pin it. So we are going to sort of pretend that we don't have that zipper allowance on the back panel. So you are going to go ahead and pin your zipper allowance in, okay, in a way to pretend like it's not there, because you're going to need the front and the back panel to be equal before you cut out the shoulder line. I hope you understand that. So that is what I did. I went ahead and I pinned in my seam allowance, my zipper allowance, and this is what I have for the back panel. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and place the front panel on it like so. So now you see that the front and the back panel are equal, because by the time I attach the zip, they are going to be equal. So that is why we are pretending like the zipper allowance is not there. That's why we folded it. So to cut the shoulder, you're going to decide which side you want to have the sleeve, okay? So for mine, I'm going to mark 3.5 inches on that part where I want to have the shoulder seam, okay? So I mark 3.5 like this, and I'm going to connect that point to the armhole of the other side, just the way I'm doing it here. So you see that the neckline is not very low. That's why I don't want to go down that low for mine. But if you want yours to be very deep, you can still go inner. You can still go downward more than I did here, but I don't want mine to be very open, okay? So you can even come up a little bit if you don't want yours to be that low, okay? So you can see what I have for mine, and if you want, you can still shift the measurement inwards and then curve it out on the other armhole. You see what I'm showing you? So you can shift it, because you see the picture, the dress is almost at the neckline of the lady wearing it. So you can shift yours forward like this and then curve out the other side to give you this kind of shape on the shoulder, okay? So I'm just cutting it out. So after cutting, this is what we have. I'm going to go ahead and remove the front. So this is the front panel and this is the back panel. I'm going to go ahead and remove the pins that I added to this. And then I'm going to fold the back into 2 equal parts, just like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and make sure that they are equal and well aligned. Then I'll cut it into 2. So here I have the 2 panels for the back. So by the time I attach the zipper, it's going to be like this. It's going to overlap like so. All right. And here I have the front panel for the upper part of this dress. So we are going to go ahead and go over to the skirt part of this dress. So here I have folded my fabric with my hip measurement because this is a skirt part. So I folded my fabric with my hip measurement plus 2 inches extra for allowance, okay? So I marked out the waistline and all my measurements is going to start from that waistline, okay? So for a lace fabric, you're going to note that you will not be hemming the lower part, okay? So you are going to make sure that you leave the raw edge like this at the lower part. So you are not adding any hem allowance for the lower part because no hem, you just leave that lace part. All right, so from the waistline, I'm going to mark 8 inches downwards and that's going to serve as my hip line. So that's the point where I'm going to mark my hip measurement. So on the waistline, I'm going to mark 1/4 of my waist measurement. My waist measurement is 27 inches divided by 4 is 6.75. So I'll mark that on the waistline and I'm going to add 1 inch extra for the seam allowance. I'm not using that for the front panel of the skirt. All right, so the hip line, I'm going to mark my hip measurement divided by 4 and then I'm going to add 1 inch extra for seam allowance and I'm going to connect the hip line to the waistline just like so. Okay, so this will be the part where I'm going to cut through. So what I'm going to do next is to go ahead and take the entire measurement I have on the hip line, and what I have here is 9.5 inches, okay? So remember my hip measurement divided by 4 is 8.5 plus 1 inch seam allowance, that is 9.5. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that measurement on the hemline of the skirt. Remember that this skirt part of the dress is going to be pencil, it's going to be straight. So I marked that measurement on the lower part, 9.5, and then on that measurement I minus 1 inch, meaning that I marked 8.5, and that from that point I'm going to connect down to the hip line. This is to give your skirt a pencil look at the lower part. So I'm using my straight ruler and I'm going to connect straight to the hip line of my skirt like so. So I'm just going to connect down to the hip line. All right, so after doing that, I'm going to go ahead and cut out my pattern. Okay, so this is what I have for the front panel of the lower part of the dress. As you can see, I did not cut out the beautiful hem on the lower part, that lace part, I didn't cut it out. So I'm going to go ahead and use this to cut out the the back panel of the skirt. So I laid my front panel on the back panel and then I added my 1 inch for zipper allowance. You can go ahead and add 1.5, 2 inches depending on what you are comfortable with. After that, I cut it out, and I'm going to go ahead and remove the front panel, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut the back panel into 2. So right here are the 2 pieces for the back panel of this dress. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you how to cut out the lining. Okay, so I have laid out my lining like this. I didn't fold it because I want this to be very simple for you to understand. So I'm going to place my skirt pattern. This is the front panel of the skirt. I'm going to place it the wrong side of the lace fabric should be on the right side of the lining piece. Okay, so take note of that. And if you want your lining to be full, you are going to place it full like so, and after that you can go ahead and pin it and then cut out your pattern. Okay, so I'm just going ahead to cut out my pattern, and I cut the other part of the skirt as well. I cut for the two back panels of the skirt, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how to cut the lining piece for the upper part. So in case you didn't get what I was explaining, you are going to place your fabric, your lace lining, the back side of your lace on the right side of the lining piece. Okay, so the wrong side of your lining should be down and the right side up, and then the wrong side of your lace is going to be on the right side of the lining piece. Just look, see what I'm doing. The wrong side of my lace is on the right side of the lining piece. Okay, that is how you want to go ahead and cut yours. If you don't do it like that, you're going to make mistake. It's going to come out wrong. Okay, so after cutting, I have the two panels for the back. So let's go over to the sleeve. So here I'm going to show you how to cut out the sleeve. I'm going to be using this two fabric. You see this is folded into two, and we are going to be using the full circle method to cut out the sleeve. Okay, so I folded this into two, and then I'm going to fold it again. So what you want to do is to go ahead and take the circumference measurement of around the place you want your sleeve to be. So when you take that measurement, you are going to go ahead and add 2 to 3 inches extra to that measurement. So mine, I had 10 inches, so I added 2 inches to that. I got 12 inches. So I'm going to divide that 12 inches by 6.28. So I divided by my 12 inches with 6.28, and I got 1.9. I just rounded that up to form 2 inches. So on the closed part, I'm going to mark 2 inches downwards like so. If you are used to my tutorial, you should know this by now. So I marked 2 inches on that point. I'm going to rotate my measuring tape, and then I'm going to mark 2 inches as well. On the middle part, I'm going to go ahead and mark 2 inches as well. Okay, so after marking the 2 inches all around, I'm going to go ahead and connect these points that I just made. And then you're going to decide how long you want the sleeve to be. For the shorter part of my sleeve, I want it to be 5 inches, and the longer part of my sleeve, I want to be 8 inches. So this one is the shorter part, so I marked 6 inches because I'm going to use 1 inch to hem the sleeve. So I want it to be 5 inches, but I marked 6 inches. So I'm just marking my 6 inches while rotating my measuring tape to get the accurate measurement. So after doing that, I'm going to go ahead and connect the point. So for the longer part of my sleeve, I used 8 inches, and the shorter part I used 5 inches. So you might want to use that for yours as well, or you can modify it to suit your desire. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it out, and that is the method I use to cut the remaining part of that sleeve. Okay, so for the shorter one, you are going to cut 2, and for the longer one, you are going to cut 2 as well. One for the right sleeve and one for the left sleeve. So at the end of the day, you are going to have 4 sleeves you are going to be using. So that is it for this tutorial, and thank you so much for watching. Until I see you again in my